Hey guys, welcome to another episode of LFA Shop Shop. This week we're doing the exhaust on the Ke10. Alright, so this episode starts off pretty abruptly. I didn't realise I had enough footage for last video, so I just cut off what was left of that episode and chucked it on this one. So let's jump into that and then we'll do the exhaust. Alright, so I found a fan that actually fits. It's a 4-blade, it's the right bolt pattern, and it's very orange. I can fix the orange and the rest is fine. So that means I can paint this pulley and paint the fan. And then I test fitted the radiator and it actually clears the fan pretty good. The bottom radiator hose clamp is spun the wrong direction, so I need to fix that and then it will fit perfectly. And then it also just touches this bolt here. Cut a little bit off that, it should fit pretty good. So I can paint all this and install the water pump properly, and then I'll paint the radiator and we can put it all in really. I need hoses, which I don't have, and then the alternator is the wrong one, so I need to swap that over. And then this front end of town is all done other than some wiring, and yeah, it's getting really close. That's really good. Fuel line's done to the fuel pump. Fuel pump to carby is obviously no carby to aim at, so leave that one there. And then the wiring, I was just talking to Aiden, and apparently this wire here should go to the coil, but if I do that it'll look kind of gross, so I'm going to run that down there and around into the down the guard into the cabin, and then through this hole and to the coil. So that'll be a long-winded way of doing it, but it will look really good and nice and clean, so I'll do that. So that's probably the next job, is move some of that stuff. I also got the crimp terminals for the battery cables, so I'm going to finish this one off and then I've got something to work with. Alright, so I spent another couple of hours out here. You probably wouldn't even notice, which is kind of the point. I've got this sensor wired up, got the oil sensor wired up, and the dizzy, so they all run down here. There's a little join here for the dizzy just in case I have to take it out, which I just realised I'm going to need to do that to prime the oil, so good thing I put that there. And then this is all zip tied out the way with the earth cable, which goes to here. Then that earths all the relays, and then this one goes up to the battery. So then all these wires, which are currently just dangling, they'll go under the battery and out that way somewhere. And I still need to run a bunch of stuff over here, and then the big starter wire and alternator wire through here as well. So got that out of the way, got the fuel nice and tucked up, so that looks pretty good. It's a bit longer than it needs to. It's just handy if that's a little bit longer for when you do the fuel filter on the side of the road like we did in Alice Springs. If you just need to cut a little bit off and put a new fuel filter on, at least we've got the length, so that's good. Then tomorrow morning I'm going to drop the tail shaft off, get 25mm taken out of that, swap this alternator over hopefully, or take that to them at least, try and get an alternator the next day or so, then I can get this pulley back on, and then I can get the fan on and get the radiator in once they're painted, get new rad hoses, chuck them on. So then that's the front done, wire up the horn, wire up the alternator, wire up the starter, run that all to this corner, and then run all of it back that way, which is going to be a lot of bits and pieces. For now what I'm going to do is just zip tie all of the wires together and not worry about like tape and stuff, just make sure it all works and is good, and then I'll pull it apart later on when I do some other stuff to wire it all up and get all this taped. So pretty happy with it so far. I can't run the engine until I have a tail shaft back because I need to put the yoke in to stop it leaking, so I can't put oil in the gearbox until I have a yoke, so it's a bit of a thing. So hopefully in about a week or so I'll have the tail shaft back and I can run it, so hopefully we'll see. And then I'm getting a 7K alternator because it's the internally regulated versus externally regulated, so hopefully that works as well. If not, the mounts are going to be different, which will be fun. I have got another 7K alternator over there somewhere, but I'm just going to wait till tomorrow and hopefully get one tomorrow and just jam it in and keep on trucking. So then other things I need to add is still the exhaust, which I'll do, try and get all the bits for that tomorrow and start trying to pump that out tomorrow. And then the carby can go on the intake manifold, and then I can run the accelerator cable and the choke cable, and then I'm going to do the clutch cable from down there, speedo cable. There's a fair bit still to go, but hopefully we can get it all done in the next week, I say, and then get it ready to run by the time I get the tail shaft back, chuck the tail shaft in, oil in it, fire. Hopefully. I say it like it's that easy. It will be for you guys. But it's going to be a lot of work for me. So hopefully we can get it all done. Alright, so I got the engine in. Next thing to do is the exhaust. So I went and got all the bits this morning. So I got a new muffler, bunch of bends, and some old headers that I don't like, and some straight tube. So the first thing to do with these headers is to join the ports together. So when you undo these two bolts, it actually flexes a fair bit. So I just got this piece of steel rod. I'm just going to weld that in there nicely and just hold it all together nice and square, hopefully. So that way when that's welded on, when I go to bolt up on the car, it'll make it a whole lot easier, nothing will move, and everything is repeatable. So what I need to do next is just get that tacked to the headers, and then chuck it in here, see where I can put the join, so the flange, and then we'll go from there. Hopefully get all the headers all welded up and everything, and then I can start from here, work my way to the back to the muffler and everything. So let's get into it. So I'll be the first to admit that I don't know how to make an exhaust, but got this bar on and it does seem to help a whole lot. Nothing's flexing when I take it apart, so that's going to be good to get it on the head. Then I've made the first two bends. So we come off the flange just near the floor, just a little 45 to go along the floor, and then over the cross member with this guy. So that's pretty decent so far. I'll chuck it back in the car and show you what it looks like. And then we need to go a big long straight piece to the back. And then the hard part is getting over the diff and to the back of the car. And then once it's all done, I'll chuck a flange in either here or any of the options. So I'll chuck this back in the car, show you what that looks like, and then I'll get back on with it. Alright, so just under the car here, you can see the exhaust comes over that crossmember nicely. Misses all of the gearbox and everything by a fair bit. Misses the crossmember by a little bit, but I'm pretty sure the engine torques that way. So worst case, this will go up. And then there's a fair bit of clearance to the floor. And then we got it all attached to the headers up there. So there's a lot of clearance until this little dog leggy bit, but it should be pretty good. So I think what I can do now is go from here and go straight, pretty much straight to the back. So I'll cut a length of straight and see how we go with that. And then the hard part is getting over the diff and then to the rear muffler. Alright, so we got the middle pipe done. There's the rear pipe started just here, so this goes up and around the diff, and then over the diff is the 90. So hopefully I can get that sorted. I'm going to put a flange on the end of this. So with this metal section, he gave me galv tube, which I wish I'd known, because the welds are crap. So where there wasn't galv tube, the welds are pretty good, and the rest of it looks absolute crap. And then we've got the headers with two pipes welded onto them. Again, welded really nice because it's not galv. Got a flange on there, so I'll chuck those back in the car once they've cooled down. And then I'll bolt on the middle section and weld the flange up. And then we'll see how we go from there. I should be able to get it to the back of the car. Not sure about the over diff bit, and the muffler doesn't really fit because it's kind of too big. So we'll see how we go there. Alright, so it's a new day. I filmed a wrap-up clip last night, but then the microphone wasn't working for some reason. So got the exhaust done to about here, and then it's just all that's fully welded, and the back half is all just tacked together. So we got the rear muffler in place and the over diff guy. I'm not 100% confident that's not going to hit, but we'll sort that out if it does. So if it does hit, I'll try and shorten here and lengthen the top of the bend. So hopefully not, because I'm having a bit of trouble getting this back bit done, but it's all pretty good. The muffler's nice and tucked out the way and level and stuff. And then the pipe out the back is reasonably centered and pretty straight. So reasonably happy with that. I just need to pull this back section off, weld it all up, and then this pipe I'm going to leave off because I'm hoping I can get a stainless one before I have to fully weld this thing, because the galv is not a good look. So I'll pull this section off and weld that fully, put it all on the car, make some more mounts and make it nice and sturdy and sit where I actually want it to, and then I'll worry about the last tip later, and that'll be the exhaust fully done. It just needs to get pulled off again a third time or fifth time or whatever and painted, and then can paint all the headers, and we're getting somewhere. Alright, so again, it's been about a half a day. Got the rear exhaust all tacked up, so I just finished off the pipe out the back, which I had to do a bit of a joggle in. Alright, so the back section here has a bit of a joggle in it. That was just to get the tip in the right spot. So I've just figured out the exhaust mount, so I'm going to take all this off in a second, weld it all up. Then I've chucked a flange just here, so that's all fully welded. There's a fully welded rear section and then another flange there. So everything is fully welded right up to the back here. I just need to smooth out and like neaten up all that front stuff. So I'll finish that off after this guy. So what I need to do here is just weld this guy, and weld the mount on. And then I think down the road what I'm going to do is chop this back here, just as far back as I can, and put a piece of straight stainless 2-inch. So then I can paint from there, just behind the weld forwards. So everything will be black, and then just the nice tip will be stainless. So that'll look pretty good. So I need to find a piece of stainless, about a foot of 2-inch, which will be pretty easy. And then we should be done. So it's all hanging under its own weight, and it doesn't really move. So pretty happy with that for my first exhaust. That's pretty good. And it does sit really high. The lowest point's probably just here, which is probably exactly where you don't want it. But it's still just above or level with the sills, so I don't think I'm going to have any issue there. And it's probably still higher than the gearbox cross member, so did pretty well. I just need to finish this back bit off. So I got the rear section all welded up, so that is the after diff section, so that's all painted. For some reason the paint went weird, and there's like lots of runs and stripiness. And then this guy came up pretty good. Had to grind the welds down a little bit because they were really gross. And then that's all painted as well. So what I'm going to do when these are dry is just buzz this surface here, make sure it's nice and clean so that the gaskets all seal up nicely. So those two are done. Then the straight pipe section in the middle is all welded. I've got both of the flanges on, everything's all welded, all the mounts and everything's all good. So I'm just going to buzz this a little bit, just grind the welds a bit nicer, and then give this a coat of paint if I have enough. And then the last thing to do is pull out the front section. And I don't think I've welded the flange on this one, and then I'm not sure if I welded everything, I don't know. Pull this out, clean it up. I'll probably get some fresh paint because those cans have been sitting on my shelf for a long time, and chuck some fresh paint on this guy. Try and make it look all nice, and then it can all get bolted on. But I probably won't finish painting it today. I'll try and get everything done, and then it's all going to be wet for like 24 hours. So try and get this painted ASAP, and then I can move on to the front stuff for the radiator, the fan, the pulley, and then I can do the wiring for the rest of the front end. And we're getting there. It feels like we're actually making progress. So I do need to keep cleaning up flat out because there's just stuff everywhere, as you can see. Alright, so of course, straight after I painted everything, I found a nice piece of stainless. So thank you to, pretty sure Navi gave me this back when I was doing the high ace. So thank you Navi, and thank you high ace. So I haven't got the exhaust on there at the moment, but the idea is this will stick out just the back here and be nice and brushed stainless and make the exhaust look pretty good. So I need to weld this guy onto this thing that I've just freshly painted. So I also have to cut about probably 3 or 4 inches off of that to use this, but that'll be a later job. So I'll keep this nice and safe on the bench to get lost with all the other things. So even though the paint went on kind of bad, it's a bit runny and a bit thick, it did dry really quickly, so I can actually put these back on. The center section is dry as well, so I'm pretty keen to chuck all that back on. And then I need to just trim this guy, weld this guy on there, then we got a nice polished tip, and then I'll have to paint that weld, I guess. But that's it. And then the whole exhaust is done, other than the front. So the front, I still need to take the extractors out and clean up the welds and clean up the extractors and paint them. So I'll try and get this back stuff done, and then tomorrow when I go out I'll grab some more paint and do the fronts, because I had just enough to do this stuff, and now I need to get some fresh black for the extractors. So get this all under the car and I'll start modifying that back bit. Alright, so we got the exhaust all finished up now. So I've welded on the stainless tip, so I needed a little bit more paint just to do that bit there and the extractors. So the full exhaust is all welded, everything's ready to bolt on, everything fits pretty good. Just this stainless tip sticking out the back, so that should look pretty good. The next thing to do is the extractors. So I haven't taken these off yet, so I need to take these off, clean them up, give them a heat treating and paint as well, and then make sure those bends at the back there are all nice and good and the flanges are actually welded on. There was one flange that I thought was welded and it was only tacked, so fully welded that guy. I'll just check these and make sure before I fully install them for the last time. And then I also need the intake gasket obviously before I do that. And I'd probably put the starter on beforehand. So there's a few things to do in there before the exhaust can actually go on. So the next thing I did was put the fan on with the new pulley, or the freshly painted pulley. So now when I get the alternator, I can put the belt on and that'll be done. Those are Loctited and spring washed and everything I can think of. So hopefully it doesn't come undone. I haven't had any problems with them in the past, but just always be careful. So now what I've moved on to is making a bar that goes in here, so it'll sandwich between the radiator and the support panel, and all of these wires that are going to go from side to side, they've got zip tied to that. So if I have a front impact, I'm going to lose most of those wires, but it'll be super tidy and right out the way. So I think that's the way to go. So I'll show you what I've got so far. I think it's ready to go. So quick little bracket, just out of 25mm flat bar. So this guy is going to go in here, something like that, and get bolted and sandwiched between the radiator, and then you can't see it through the front holes, which is what I was worried about, and then you won't be able to see any of the cables through the front holes. So it'd be nice and out of the way. You'll probably be able to see it from here just, but the grill and stuff will be in the way. So I'll bolt this guy on, I'll leave the radiator off for now, and then I'll run wires. I can zip tie to this, and then once I get them all in the right spot and happy with everything, I can take this out, paint it, put the radiator in, and we're good to go. So this thing is coming along. I also had 5 minutes to sort out my list. It's getting pretty short, so a lot of that stuff has to happen after the roof lining goes in, so like windows and all that sort of stuff. I'm also trying to get the engine ready to run, so I need tail shaft for that, but I'm pretty much down to the last cosmetic stuff. So if time permits, which I doubt it, lowering blocks, the washers for the window, I'm going to just ignore them for now. The radio and the reverse lights, I'm ignoring them for now. So another thing I want to make up is the charcoal canister in the boot. So I just don't have time to research that and make it work. The boot seal needs to be glued on, which I am hating. So if I get all of this done and there's no time crunch and I've got 2 or 3 days, I'll put the boot seal on. And then I'd like to try and find some center caps for the Wantinabis. All right, so that's it for the exhaust, and that's it for this video. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you next week.